All right, Yang Gang, what is going on, everybody? This is, of course, McCoy. We're going live, and we are going to be talking about a topic that's pretty much near dear to everybody's heart, that everybody has gone through at least throughout this whole pandemic. And we are going to be talking about life in quarantine. And I know everybody has different experiences with life in quarantine and how everybody's been handling the quarantine as of right now and doing different things. And so we just want to pretty much highlight some things, but also at the same time, we also want to highlight some other things that's been going on since this pandemic has happened and since many states have been in quarantine, and pretty much do as we normally do, have it as an open discussion and get you guys' thoughts. For those that are joining, welcome to the channel. As always, first and foremost, thank you for guys for subscribing, liking the channel. We appreciate it so much. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, I suggest you subscribe to the channel. You also hit that like button and smash on that notification bell, so that way you'll be informed on the next time we go live. Okay, I know I'll be pretty much manning it down for the next few minutes, but that's okay. We got others coming in. And so again, welcome to the channel. And so as we're going forth, again, if you haven't noticed, we're talking about life in quarantine. And so I'm going to share my experience. I know Toby, he's going to come on a little bit later. He's going to share his experience. And we're just going to have an open dialogue like we normally do. And again, we're going to, ask questions to the chat and get your guys' feedback as far as your inputs on how quarantine has been beneficial for you. And if it's been not helpful for you, want to highlight those things as well. Okay? So let's get this show on the road. Life in quarantine. We've had some ups, we've had some downs, we've had some things go around and around in circles. I know some people, they've been getting unemployment, and with the government running the way how it's been, a lot of people now, they're kind of like, okay, I've had some source of income coming in, I lost my job, or my hours got reduced because of quarantine. And even with everything going on as of right now, it's like, okay, what am I going to do? How am I going to make my bills get met? And especially with rent due, a lot of people are wondering, how in the world am I going to pay my rent? So that way I still have a roof over my head, a bed to lay on, the bare necessities that are needed to survive this pandemic. And I know that with similar states around, they're seeing spikes going up, and they're seeing an increase of more activity. And I know here in Michigan, I can speak on for myself. I know here in Michigan, we've got our numbers down low, but now we're seeing a slow increase as far as COVID cases go, as far as the positive cases go. Excuse me. And so still trying to curb that down. But I think with life in quarantine, especially in my household, it's actually been really good. It's been really good. I started my garden, and I've killed a bunch of my vegetables. I'll admit, I killed a bunch of my vegetables, but I got some grapes going. I got some strawberries going, and they're looking phenomenal right now. I may not get a harvest not today. I may not get a harvest this season, but if I allow my grapes and my strawberries to continue to bloom and continue to go, hey Jeremiah, and continue to pretty much do what is needed, then we'll be able to go. Oh, there we go.
What's going on, guys?
What's up?
So let me tell you, we had I'm sure some of you guys are aware of Hurricane, what's it, Isaias, whatever it's going on.
Yeah.
And the repercussions from this hurricane are scaring the crap out of me, because on top of, 40 million people being out of work, on top of like all of the homelessness, all of the pandemic, people not being able to live their lives, my power was out all the way out until about 10 minutes ago. And I'm just thinking, like, oh man, it's gonna get crazy out here if this continues. Like, we cannot handle a natural disaster right now on top of everything else. Like combining like quarantine life with a natural disaster where your power's out now and it's hot and people are out of work, people are starving, people are afraid of the pandemic. Oh man, that is a dangerous combination.
Yes,
That is
agreed.
that is some French Revolution stuff right there.
Right, right.
Oh man, sorry I'm late. Let me tweet this out real quick.
You're good. You're good. You know, and I was just getting in because I know Tony, he asked me about have I been watering my garden by hand. I'm telling him like, yeah. I sent a response in there too, like, yeah, I've been watering by hand, but I know here in Michigan we've been getting a lot of rain, and so that's helped out a lot. That's helped out a whole lot. I have a makeshift greenhouse that sits behind my house, and so it started to pretty much to kind of help. And so once I saw that, okay, it wasn't getting enough sunlight, so I put them on my deck that I have out there and continue with the same watering routine. And dude, I mean, the leaves on there are huge. They're green, healthy looking. I know I've been trimming some leaves off here and there, some of the dead leaves, and been trimming them off, but I've been leaving them in the pot. And so naturally it decomposes in the soil, giving it more nutrients and whatnot. And I'm like, man, I cannot wait until those grapes and those strawberries start coming in. I'm like, yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited. So excited. So, Jeannie, life in quarantine. How has life been in quarantine been with you in your neck of the woods?
Well, one thing I've noticed is there's been a rise in domestic violence in the area. People, okay. I worked at a job, and you know, people have the option to telework, and they're just like not, because they don't want to be around their families for that long.
Right.
It can be a little out of control in certain ways. Life in quarantine, it's been an experience. It's different now because it'll most likely, some of the stuff is going to remain the same after quarantine.
True.
Like the rise of telework, the rise of telehealth, a rise of a lot of, you know, things that you can do from home that our kids will probably never know that we went to a store to do.
Yeah, yeah.
And Amazon's making more money than they've ever had before.
Hand over fist, but that's a different one.
Honestly.
Yeah.
And I feel like I did the Yang Gang book club today. Shout out to the Yang Gang book club.
Yes.
You guys are freaking awesome. They're positive beams of sunshine. Oh, and hello, chat.
Yes.
I really say chat. But and in one of the books, I talked about Naruto, the Naruto series, and how it's how like a lot of its appeal is based on the fact that so many people feel lonely, left out, isolated. And I feel like social media has had a big hand in that. But I feel like with quarantine and so many of the stuff that we used to do, like in person, going to online, I feel like that's only going to increase. And I feel like there needs to be some way to embolden our communities so that people don't feel as lonely.
Yes. Agreed. I agree. And dude, you rocked it. Yes, you rocked it. As far as the book club goes, yes. Especially that suit. I want that suit.
Oh.
I want that suit. I mean, I got a bunch of suits, but still, it's like, that was nice. I enjoyed it. I enjoy your recommendations. Like, oh yeah, great.
Yeah. Ronald, we gotta get you on there, man. I feel like you rocked that.
I already did it.
Oh, you did it?
I did it a while back ago.
Oh man.
Like, I did it when Michigan had just shut down, like completely shut down and locked down everything. And the only people that were actually out and about were those that were essential workers. And so I was like, you know, hey, I might as well just go ahead and do it. And I know with the with one of the videos I did, I had to do like 2 takes on it because as it was getting uploaded, it kept breaking. So I'm like, man, let me go ahead and get this done and out the way. But it was real well worth it. Oh, it was so well worth it. And I think that was the one thing that kind of like opened my eyes to different books. And I mentioned that I was gonna the one book I wanted to read was The Art of War. I actually found that. I'm reading that right now. It's awesome. I like it. I like it. A lot of the strategies, it makes sense. And a lot of the things that the author talked about, if you think about it, it makes sense. It makes very much sense. And especially with if you kind of think about it in terms of how everybody is handling the coronavirus, you know. No, mama, not right now.
That's weird. My mom was just calling too. What is going on?
It must be a mama thing. It must be because and actually on top of that too, with being in quarantine, my mom, she's a music producer, so she's been doing songs, and so we've been recording like 3-4 songs for the past couple of months now. So that's been a big plus with being in quarantine. So that was a huge hit. I know we had just recorded a song maybe yesterday or the day before yesterday, and so that was good. That was huge. That was huge. And I know saw Belladonna, she was saying that, keeping the store shopping to a minimum. Like, yeah, you're right. Because a lot of times here, we'll go to the store, we'll buy what we need for like the next few days or for that week, and then we won't go shopping until maybe the next week. And that's been helpful as well. Of course, we've always been wearing our mask, and a lot of people are kind of like, no. But even still, the majority of the stores here in Michigan, it's mandatory. Like, you cannot get in without a mask. And if you don't have a mask, they will send you straight to customer service and you will get a mask unless you have some kind of medical condition. But yeah.
Give me 1 minute. I think my house is on fire.
Uh-oh. That's not good. That's not good. Yeah. Yes, that is true. And it's funny too, because the way how my house is set up is I'm right in between my mom and my brother, and both of them, they're no more than 5 minutes away. Yeah. So.
Okay. Everything's cool. Speaking
You
of
good,
moms,
Jeannie?
yeah.
You
Speaking
good?
of moms, I just came from Erica's live stream where she was talking to her mom, and it was so interesting to see like her, like she's such a an entrepreneurial mind. She has like done all of these businesses, and I'm seeing like a bunch of sentiments like people talking about starting new businesses in quarantine. So if you guys or anyone in the chat been working on any sort of business strategy since being in quarantine?
Right. Maybe an alternative to making money, but besides what's being handed down to us, because we know the government is slow at doing things.
So we got this question from not saying the name. It says, Jeannie, how do you think quarantine has affected online abuse? It seems to be on the rise. Do you think it's okay? Well, as a lot of you guys know, a lot of you guys are from the Yang Gang, and the Yang Gang hasn't been, the most friendly these last few days. I think
months.
I think it's definitely ramped up in the last week. There's always going to be some tension in online fandoms, but in the last week, it's just freaking exploded. So I think a lot of people are feeling the effects of quarantine. I think a lot of people are sick of being trapped, and they feel like things aren't going to get better. Especially with schools reopening, and it seems like no one's listening to people's actual concerns about, students getting sick. And it just seems like we're going to be in this thing almost forever, and people are starting to get angry. They're getting angry at the response from the government. They're angry at their schools reopening, even though there's going to be a lot of deaths because of this. People are angry that we're not getting that universal basic income, that $1,200 every single month, that we get it once, and now they're trying to do the second stimulus. I heard recently that like even Mitch McConnell was pushing for it, and Trump's like, no, the American people have received enough money, and that's BS. Like, how do you expect this thing to get better? I've seen these videos where, like in South Korea, they'll like have you like in these like hotels, they'll like send meals to your door, all these things that are provided publicly through the government. And like you have that here, and people like, no, they're handouts. People just want to be lazy. And it's like, why is moving our society forward so controversial? You sprinkle the word socialism on everything, communism, things controlled by the state, and people just like automatically assume that it's bad. Like people used to connect phones in and out in phone stations before we had, the type of phone systems we have today. Like the advancement of technology, the advancement of our system, things going towards, a futuristic thing, it's not bad. And it just irks me sometimes, people's ancient thinking and how easy certain media outlets brainwash people into thinking that you're bad because you want to provide this service to all Americans. You just want them to be lazy. You just want them to, just be lazy jerks who live off the government. And honestly, as humans in the society we live in, no one wants to do that. We all grew up seeing like the superhero movies or the rags to riches movies, and it's just in us through our media, through in every aspect to go out and get things, become better, add to our society, add to our culture. And the fact that like you think that government services would distort that it's wrong.
True. So true. And I think that with a lot of, and I could be wrong, but with a lot of people being on quarantine, it's giving them that option and that choice rather to actually do some research into the politics and to see what their elected officials have been doing and what they've been voting on, and basically putting them on blast and saying, hey, I elected you into this office and you haven't done anything that you are outlining that you are going to do. What's going on? And especially like you were saying, Jeannie, with the piece on universal basic income, that should have been implemented like months ago, And I remember the tweet that Donald Trump said. He called out both the Democrats and the Republicans and said that, listen, you guys need to pass a UBI because obviously with what's going on, it's not going to end. And the American people, they've already suffered enough. So out of the many mind-boggling things that Trump has posted on his tweets, I think that one spoke, because now he's saying, like, screw the party sides. You guys both come together. You guys both make an agreement on making sure everybody has some kind of basic income coming in during the duration of this pandemic. And if you guys don't get your act together, I'm gonna do an executive order and I'm gonna put it in place. And I'm scratching my head like, okay, Trump, I get what you're saying. Like you're pushing the ball in the right direction, but in hindsight, I'm also thinking, at what cost is that going to be upheld? Is it going to fall back on the American people, or is it something that's legitimately that you're wanting to do and not because, election season is underway? Those are my thoughts.
Oh man, to be honest, school's reopening. I got a few nieces and nephews here. I don't have any kids, but I got a few nieces and nephews who will be starting school here the next week, and the whole thing is just horrifying.
Yes,
from the kids, the teachers, especially the teachers in the Yang Gang. It's horrifying to see like how this will play out, because it seems like you're just rolling this ball with no protection or no measures to make sure that anything good actually comes out of this.
True.
And it feels like, it almost feels like we're in one of those like controlled, what's it called? Controlled release, or one of those experiments where they just like release the virus to the public and just see how it plays out.
Yeah.
It's horrific to think how this will actually like affect the world.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. Because I know me and my wife, we sat our kids down and we talked to them about going to school. We told them, like, look, you got a couple of options. And both options you may not like, but we're going to put it to you like this. If you go to school, you're pretty much going to be going to school 2 days out the week. In those 2 days that you're going to be at school, it's going to be required that you're going to be wearing your mask all day. No exceptions until you get to lunch. Once lunch hits, then that's when you take your mask off. And so now I was like, that's option one. Option two is you can stay at home and do virtual learning. And that way you won't run the risk. But at the same time, depending on what's going on at your guys' schools, this is going to be the outcome of the school year. And even me, I feel for my ice cream because I'm a college student and I'll be going back to school to finish off my degree. But that option of whether you're going to do it online, do everything online, or do it hybrid where you do half your classes online, the other half is going to be in person, even still at the college that I'm going to, that's still up in the air because they really don't know how they're going to handle this. And I think that echoes to everybody around the nation where it's like, we don't know how this is going to handle. We don't know how this is going to work out, but, we're going to do the best you can. Chat, what are you guys' thoughts as far as schools? And if you do have kids, how do you guys feel about your kids going to school, this semester? Okay. Yeah, I agree.
I talked to one of my friends who's in the doctorate program at my college, and he was explaining to me how everyone was pretty much going online nowadays, and how because of COVID, like so many colleges are like lowering their they're lowering their like standards to get into certain programs because of the drop of enrollment. I feel like COVID's going to expose a lot of broken systems.
Oh, but of course.
That's why I feel 2022 is going to be like the year Toby progressives actually take charge, because life is like too freaking hard right now for people to just like stand by, not get involved, not to vote, not to get out there and try to make a change in the world.
Yes, agreed. And and I also believe that it's been exposing ever since it came out. It exposed the need for schools to get updated. It exposed the lack of internet capabilities that's actually going to be needed for people to do telehealth, for people to do work at home and do remote work. It exposed a lot of that. And, a lot of times we talk about the African-American community, the Latino community, any person of color, their communities that's been hit the hardest. It exposed a lot of that. And Gina, you're right, especially when these races come up for 2022, 2024, you're going to see a slew of people who are coming out of this running for those offices because they've experienced the heartache and the hardships, and they're wanting to want change. And I agree. 2022, 2024. Oh, yeah, it's going to be an excellent year. Good year.
2022 especially. Like, I can definitely see that, like, because now, like, I see a lot of the candidates running in 2020, and it's, like, 5 times harder because of this pandemic.
Yes.
Like I remember we had Heidi on recently, and she was explaining how she had to do like everything online. She couldn't, go out and canvas. Well, she couldn't as much as she wanted, and how like difficult it was. And she still managed to get the 6%. I know it was about 12% between the 2 progressive candidates that were running in that race, and that's a big knockoff compared to what we've seen so far. And I noticed. In my district, in a lot of my area, a lot of these people are running unopposed.
True.
Yeah.
True.
So many people are running unopposed. So many people who don't mind the system, don't mind changing it, because what are you going to do? No one's running against me.
True.
I feel like politics is going to blow up over the next like 1.5, 2 years.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Toby, glad to have you on the channel. Got to ask you a question. We've been asking the gang, how has quarantine impacted your life? And is your stay, doing anything that might warrant of you guys going back under quarantine again?
So the personal impacts. So how's it impacted my life? Well, I've already been like alone. So I realized that like it kind of gave me more insight and respect for the people who kind of had to deal with young children, older grown children, have family at home, have elderly people at home. I live by myself here working full time. I moved to Massachusetts last year, January, for kind of my first job. So there was a lot of things that were kind of not as hard of a transition. I was able to work from home. I do software. So that lends itself very easily to working from home. The actual work was fine. I think what was really hard though was, the lack of interaction because, even my job is not the most interactive, but I do work in a lab area. I can always talk to other people. So all of a sudden going home, now it's just like me and my machine, and that's all I can do, get my stuff done. It was just a lot of I had like what I called an existential quarter life crisis, because I also turned 25 in March. Great timing. First week of March. So I was like, this is my first time really living by myself, having a job, and trying to like decide what do I actually want to do for the rest of my life. It's always been, school, college, straight to grad school, straight to work. And now it was like, okay, what do I actually want to do? Because I realized I wasn't happy with a lot of things. And so the quarantine kind of gave me more time to think about some of that. Also because we couldn't, go out. I couldn't distract myself with some of the things that I would do. Like, I'm young, go and go out and party, whatever, or go hang out with people. So all of a sudden that was gone. I was never really someone who I didn't really do a lot of the binge watching. There are some shows, but I kind of was like, okay, well, what do I do now to fill all my time? Social media use was becoming kind of worse in some ways. I was trying to find a good way to manage these things. So personally, it was just trying to find new ways to kind of deal with things. That maybe I things. I had a lot of big conversations with some old friends from undergrad, some people who own their own businesses, and I was trying to ask them, can you give me some insight? Because I was really looking at, I've only worked for a year and a year and a half. Even during the pandemic, it was like a year and maybe 2 months, and I was like, I'm not really happy with the way things are necessarily going. So I wanted to like learn what other people did, who worked for themselves or who did stuff in finance, like maybe trading of stocks or Forex. So I think quarantine kind of made me question some things more about like, what assumptions have I made about my life so far and what I had to do, because I realized I was not looking forward to like working 40, 50 years at one company, 40 hours a week or more, often more. And I was like, I need to like do things to make my life more flexible, be able to like travel more and do other things that are more interesting. And of course, being able to give back to the community and engage, like we're doing here with this with this stream. But like, I wanted to be able to like have some kind of, what are the things I want to do outside of work? Because I hadn't really given myself much time to think about all that very seriously. But yeah.
I was talking with my mom. I changed jobs like about a month ago, and I noticed like talking to my mom and talking to a lot of like older people that they were a lot more focused on like being loyal to your company. You get there, you work hard, you stay there for 20 years, and you move up the ladder. And I noticed like the large amount of dissonance between older people and younger people when it comes to that subject. Like back in their day, you'd go to like a factory, work there for 20 years and walk away and get a check for the rest of your life. There was no like discussions on healthcare because everyone was already covered if you had a job. And it was so like easier to stay at a place for like, 20 years, give your time and your life to this place because you'd be getting it back forever. But nowadays, like I see more and more companies treating their employees more like contractors. You know, instead of the pension, it's the 401k if they offer that. Instead of the healthcare is like in some places really expensive, even if you have a job. Um, what else? It's just and there's been a lot of increase of 1099 work as well. The contract work where you have to like pay your own taxes and they don't come with benefits even though you're working full time. I feel like there's going to be a large spike of entrepreneurship in the next few years. You feel like that, Toby?
There's going to be more entrepreneurship, a large spike. Yeah. So there's already, I forgot the statistic, but there was already like, I want to say like with Black women entrepreneurs in particular is like one of the fastest growing groups. There's so much that's happening with like brands, you know. I mean, you have like influencers, but you have people making their own brands. You have more marketing. You have a lot of just opportunities, and people are trying to like try new things and not just kind of do the same old, same old. Like I know people who probably work full time, but they do things like maybe they're nail techs, so with the create acrylics or whatever. People who just sell like Etsy type things, you know, maybe they have shirts, maybe they have other, you know, physical things they sell. And it's just so interesting because that wasn't the conversation. And of course, Yang has talked about this, that you're told to like go into 6 figures worth of debt, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of debt to go to law school. Everyone cheers and applauds. You say like, hey, let me be an entrepreneur. And your family might be like, oh, what are you doing?
Oh, no.
Like, what are you doing? Oh, yeah. So it's just like, I think now though, there's been more of a shift. Like people aren't telling all the kids, young people to be entrepreneurs, but more people are finding this for themselves. I mean, even like, maybe it's kind of a silly example, but you have some of these TikTok stars who like, and then you had Vine as well. And I guess people who just kind of blew up on their own. And I mean, that's like a specific kind of thing, but like it's pretty low access. Anyone can get into certain things, have their creative juices, you know, business, entrepreneurship. There's just so many avenues. Not to mention like actual finance stuff. Like more people I know have gotten into the stock market. Of course, we were talking about this among our own selves, kind of in our little McCoy group. We're talking about different stocks and how if you haven't gotten in, you need to get in. So it's just great that I think there's more people who are looking for community-based empowerment or just like things that they can do in addition to the 9-to-5, because that's not stable. As we see with this pandemic, as we saw with the last recession, barely 10 years apart, and just hearing different people's stories. Yeah, like home-based businesses are growing a lot, and it's really kind of a time that people are gonna realize you're gonna have to find something in that field if you want to kind of survive and keep up. At least that's my view. That's the direction a lot of people are gonna go. And it's not like easy, it's not glamorous, but it has a lot of potential because you can only work so many hours, and you might work overtime, but you can only work you can only get as much money as you personally can work. But if you can learn to like, you know, sell things or teach courses or whatever, there's so many things that people do where you can actually like leverage and scale up in a bigger way that you can't scale your own labor, you know?
Yeah.
There's this YouTuber I really like. His name is Josh Fluke. I don't know if you guys ever heard of him. He's a computer science guy, coder. He talks a lot about starting your own business, and his channel is mainly talking about a lot of businesses that offer these like horrifyingly bad offers as jobs because they know it's so bad people would take it. Like they'll have people doing like full stack development for like $15 an hour, or like or like freaking or just like these horrifying jobs or these horrifying situations we saw at the beginning of quarantine where I see a lot of situations where people go into like this Zoom call, like certain employees of this company go into the Zoom call, and this automated voice tells you that you've just lost your job. You and 10,000 other people have just lost their jobs. So people are seeing the way a lot of companies are treating their people, and I feel like that's definitely contributing to the large amount of move towards, you know, freelancing, starting your own thing. It's not, it's like, even if you have a job, it's almost like you're an entrepreneur anyway, based on how they treat you, because everything's a chance.
True.
There's no guarantees.
True.
True.
True. So true. And I think that with a lot of people being on quarantine, I think it's giving them a drive to try to do something new, at least in my honest opinion. And I think that with them trying to do something new, it kind of gives them that time frame to probably get a business plan up and running that they probably like, held off for years and years and years because they were stuck doing that 9 to 5. They were stuck doing the overtime just so they could pay rent, pay electric, pay utilities, and still have just a little nugget to, possibly put in the savings and keep it for a rainy day. And I think with quarantine, it has allowed people to do a little bit more exploring, to find out more about themselves now they're home. And because they're home more often, they're able to kind of, look at themselves in the mirror and take a deep, hard look as far as, all right, this is where I'm at now. Where do I want to be in the next 5 years? Where do I want to be in the next 10 years? Or maybe they have something short term like, hey, Listicati. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. We would love to see you. We would love to see you in one of these. I feel like you have a lot of insight.
Yes. And like it just goes to show that a lot of people, if given, that extra time to kind of sit down to think about what they want to do, it'll have been great. And then of course you throw in the universal basic income, which NGA has been pushing for months and for years, that even though it's still been in the talks as far as Congress goes, as far as them pushing it and making it mandated, it's still on the table. It's still up for grabs. And I think you couple being in quarantine and having that $1,000 a month to be able to get your business up and going, that'd be great. That'd be tremendous.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually was just thinking in my head about like all the barriers that make it harder. So healthcare we mentioned, right? Mm-hmm. In fact, I didn't watch it, but there is the Yang Speaks episode with Anand, right? Mm-hmm. Can't say his last name, but Anand, and it was so interesting the clip I saw where it was like the left is bad at messaging, or I should say the Democrats. I shouldn't say like necessarily left in general, but the Democratic Party is very bad at messaging. Something that will help like 90%, 95% of people, they can't get over 50% of the electorate to buy into, while something that might help 1%, the top 1% of people, Republicans can get that over 50% people. They can strike these traditional family values, whatever. And you can really tap into that, like tap into the business side of things, the family and Ing was good at that, making communities whole, making all these things whole. You could even talk about how like crime will go down if people, aren't in poverty or like have more opportunities, and these other things. And you can create more businesses if the government's not paying that implicit tax. Like that was so great. What Tony De Vera said, like, yes, it is this kind of hidden tax where everything is more expensive. You're either not paying your employees as much, or, just the cost of what you're producing is more because you have to pay for all your employees' healthcare. And then if you have the education system reformed, if you're, there's a whole debate about free college and whether that's the right answer. But for sure, the student loan forgiveness, just like there's so much of a burden that's also just held back. Like a lot of people are held back and they're not contributing to the economy and to their communities the way they could be because of these freaking loan payments. And then you have like future, like barriers for future people to get into college. Yes, it's not the end all be all. I know there's a whole conversation about that, but there's a lot of people who could go, who really should be able to go, and cost shouldn't be that barrier. There's just a lot of reforms that, if done, will unlock more people's potential and actually get sort of that trickle up community-based, wealth and prosperity. I actually just saw something on Instagram. It was talking about, this was actually about defunding the police and how the EMTs as we know it exist because the Pittsburgh, I think, police department, they were the ones who did medical procedures, I guess in general in the country. And sometimes it was a punishment and a demotion for them to do medical procedures, which is not going to work very well where white police officers are going to have to like service the Black communities, and they're already disgruntled because they've been like put on this probation. So what happened was a bunch of Black people decided to train some like people without high school diplomas on how to do CPR, which was a new thing back then, like the 70s and 80s or whatever. And it was such a successful model that like nationwide, it was looked to as, oh, this community-based, EMT system is how we should basically do this in the whole country. And actually, even like white neighborhoods that were stricken with cases also got serviced by these Black EMTs. And so that's just like what happens when you give communities resources. Oh my gosh, innovation and prosperity happens there, right? Which is, and then that's like a separate kind of thing with the whole defund of the police and how it's like a scary term. But if you can basically they took part of the budget and now they actually created the permanent EMT using those like police vehicles, which I mean, I guess are ambulances now. So there's just a lot that can be done if proper investment actually happens and barriers are removed to entry. And look at that, entrepreneurship and wealth explode. But alas, politics.
True. So, we've done some talking in the chat. I know you guys have questions that you guys want to ask us. Like this would pretty much be your time to ask questions for us to answer. So at least, like I said, it's going to be an open dialogue. We don't want to just hog all the time, but we want to hear from you guys. If you guys have any questions, go ahead, shoot them away, fire away, and we will do our best to go ahead and answer those as the time has allowed us. So it could be whatever, especially since a lot of states, like I said before, a lot of states, they are creeping up with cases, and there could be a possibility of us getting of those states getting shut down. And again, like I said, I know in the state of Michigan, I know the governor, she's been very, very proactive in making sure we've been safe. But at the same time, she's also been kind of hard as far as keeping everybody safe. And if the numbers continue to go up like they have been showing, then I know Michigan will probably be one of those states that could go back down on being locked down. So just throwing that out there. But other than that, I know, again, there's been a lot of good that's come out of this quarantine. Been able to chat with a lot of good people, be able to know good people and know them on a personal level as if we were friends for like years. So it's like, that's cool. That's awesome. That's great. Anybody else?
Well, I remember you also had asked the question about the state. Everything's gonna, since you just mentioned Michigan, Massachusetts has been very, very good. I mean, at some points, maybe 1 death in the whole state. 9, I think, today. Like I got text messages for daily updates. It usually ranges between like 5 and maybe 11 deaths for the whole state. And we used to easily hit over 200, like between 150 and 220 at the peak. We were just seeing these spikes. Like 90 was a spike. Like, oh God, it keeps going to 100 something. And most of those deaths were in nursing homes, sadly, like retirement homes. But now we're like really in the clear. And literally, we're in phase 3, which I think come June, they started opening up these phases where indoor restaurants could finally open, which was like a 2-part thing. Like outdoor restaurants are open, then indoor restaurants are open. Phase 4 is like never happening. It basically says if there's a vaccine or a treatment, then they'll actually reopen. And I guess you also have like testing and tracing. You can reopen bars and clubs, but that's like, at this point, kind of a fantasy, unfortunately. I mean, there are sort of these trials being run, I guess. Like, it does seem like, oh, gosh, we're actually in August. So by even next month in October, they're going to start having trials in the U.S. for vaccines. But I don't know. I don't know if anyone's going to be comfortable enough to actually want to go really to, like, an actual club or bar. Like, I've been to some of these lounges that have reopened, but very socially distanced. Tables, you have to wear your mask if you're in line or walking around. No bar, no dance floor. Even though the music they'll be playing is like, oof, don't even get me started. It's like African, Caribbean. I'm just like, y'all can't tempt us with this type of music and throwback trap. you can't tempt us with this music and tell us like we can't dance. Like, what are you doing? But the point is that it's very different now, but it's still safe. A lot of people have been going more to the beaches. They get a little crowded, but people still know how to keep their distance. You see masks. People are pretty respectful with that. So yeah, I'm just kind of seeing how things will be going forward. I'm still making the most of the summer, and I'm glad that people are, using their own discernment and still doing what they need to do to kind of take care of their mental health, go on hikes, go to parks, but just, stay safe in the meantime so that you can, because like if you're not doing the proper procedures when you go to like grocery stores or other places, then it's kind of like you can't trust anything. But if you trust that people are taking care of themselves in their kind of day-to-day routines, and companies have the mandates and everything, and employers have the mask mandates, then yeah, if I go to a beach outing, I'm a little less worried versus if I was going to go down to Georgia, sorry, anyone from these places, but Florida, Texas, I would not trust to like show up to some places because I have no idea what's happening elsewhere. There's no mandates. I think Texas actually has been decent about wearing masks, but still, like bars and stuff are open. It's just like that's a no-go.
Yeah.
But
let me tell you, can you guys see me? All right,
Yep.
cool. Let me tell you, I go to my local mall, and it's a wasteland. It's a total wasteland. Like there's been bits of pieces of people in various different places. Then COVID-19 hit, and they got worse. So a lot of these places that were dying were pretty much already dying anyway.
Yeah.
As we see like the fourth industrial revolution, or it's definitely, but in my state's been pretty careful. Like I go to a lot of places and everyone has their mask on. Everyone respects the mask mandate. They want to see this thing go away, but we live in a area that's very military, and because of that, you got people flying in and out from all these different areas of the world all the time. And let me tell you, I get notifications for my job every time they discover a new COVID-19 case from someone who works there. Wow. I get 2 or 3 every single day from my area. It is horrific. It just feels like you're just on this countdown until you get it. And seeing all this, like, it's definitely starting to weigh the stress.
Yeah,
I feel that.
Agreed.
Anybody, Toby, you get a lot of notifications like that? You get notifications like that?
No, so we don't have anything. Well, so also our office has like basically even since the end of the first week of March, before the government started doing anything, they were like work at home, heavily just recommend working at home, and they basically said you can't meet on our campus or whatever. Like meetings had to be virtual. Now, as I'm sitting here,
hey Anna,
I'm
actually in my to stay late, but no one's here, so we wouldn't expect to get notifications like that because people aren't meeting, except people who work on classified stuff, right? If you're working on classified in certain lab environments, yes, you would have to be here and then use your caution. But if I heard in general, someone in my company got COVID, it's like, okay, that doesn't mean much when most of us are remote. And literally, like, most activities not happening here. My apartment complex, they said that they wouldn't notify people. This was at the beginning of the pandemic. I'm pretty sure they kept it the same. They don't notify people if they don't. I think what they say is they might notify if there is an outbreak in our place, but they won't say where it happened just for privacy. And I don't remember ever seeing a notification, which means either no one here got it, no one here tested for it. Even though more people have been, working from home, and I see the parking lot's always full, but it seems like with all the measures in place, it just hasn't been spreading in these type of places. So that would be interesting though, seeing like, 2 people here, 5 people here got it. It's good to know. It can be a bit unnerving for sure.
Oh yeah, but of course, because I know here, I had just found out through the grapevine that one of my neighbors messed around and tested positive, and so it's like the neighborhood I live in is full of kids, And so it's like, okay, now we got to pretty much keep all the kids literally locked down on for them what it feels like is house arrest, because it's like, they like to play around like they're kids. But I'm glad that somebody was able to notify us that was going on, and so we kind of did our best to kind of keep everybody at bay. But even still, like the area that I live in, we typically we've been good, but we've also been seeing little spikes here and there all over the place. So it's like, we're keeping a close eye on it. We're watching it. And I know that at one point in time, I know the state of Michigan, we've had notifications of where there was a positive case at. And so we were able to track it and monitor it and kind of like, do our best to kind of stay away from that area. But at the same time, knowing that if we had to go there, that we're pretty much straight mask, hand sanitizer, and if we got to be in that certain area, like get in when we need to get in, get out, get home, take showers, wash clothes, and pretty much just do the best we can to protect ourselves and to protect our families and our loved ones.
That's really what it is. You have to have the communal sense of caring. That, we're all in this together. I mean, it's overused, but really, like, this thing spreads if people aren't being diligent in their own little circles. So I'm just glad that Massachusetts has been very on board with like the mask mandates and all these things. And to be honest, I'm not someone who's really frequented businesses, so it's funny. Like, life in quarantine, like, wasn't that different in some ways. Like, the only thing that was really different was I would normally go out more for like, nightlife type stuff. And even then, most of the time during the week, I'm just at home doing my thing. Like, I go to work, I go home, go to work, go home. On the weekend, I mostly stay home unless there's like an event happening throughout the day. So I'm not really frequenting businesses. I'm not worried about going in and out of like, I don't know, salons and my local tailor to get a sew. Like, I'm not really going to like these things. So I don't think as much about it. But for people who really are in these kind of communities and they're often going to these small businesses, I mean, you really have to like be mindful. Like, these mandates are important. These things are actually really important. Yes. But so it's just like, different communities have different needs, but overall there should be some baseline of common sense, I guess.
Yeah.
But
anything to add, Jeannie?
How do you guys feel about the mask mandate? Like, do you think that more people than would be wearing the masks because of the mask mandate, or is it? How do you guys feel about it?
I could say for my state, and especially the city that I live in, which is highly Republican. The city that I live in is highly Republican. Because of the mask mandate, we've seen a lot more people wearing them. And it was like, why wait for the mandate to roll out to wear a mask when you could have been doing it from the get-go? But then again, I look at it because now the fine, if you don't wear a mask, especially if you're going to like a grocery store like Walmart or I know the local chain here, Meijer, if you don't go in the store, if you go in the store without your mask, you're going to get fined at least $500. At least $500. And it probably went up since then. But, you think about, okay, I have no job. And if I get hit with a fine of $500, how in the world am I supposed to pay that? And so I think that with that mandate, it causes a lot more people to be a lot more aware of not only themselves, but also the people around them, especially our senior citizens that, they're out and about, they want to get out, they're tired of being at home. You should wear your mask because of them, so they don't mess around and get hit with the coronavirus and, have their immune systems weakened and you still be able to enjoy life.
Yeah. Hold on. Sorry, guys. I'm kind of double tasking here.
Good.
I apologize.
You're good.
I guess for me to answer the question, I feel like there's gonna always be some segments of the population who are like, my liberty, give me liberty or give me death type of thing. And even if you did kind of have something national, I don't know, like how, I mean, of course, Trump recently was saying, oh yeah, masks, wear it, somber tone. But I'm not sure if a federal mandate, in fact, the federal mandate may have just increased that resistance. Like, it may have given more of a guidance, of course, because if it happened federally, then the states really need to get their ish together. But I don't think that it would be so received where it's like, yes, now the federal government is doing it and I'm going to change my ways. Like, if you weren't doing it, you weren't doing it, unfortunately. So it like, I kind of is like what he said, you know, what Trump said, it is what it is. Except in this case, it's about people wearing the masks or not. Like, it's going to happen or not. Like, all you can really do is empower the local communities to be able to have, I think what is important, and this, I've seen this with some states like Texas, I think the governor was saying that they would let local communities do what they wanted, but then I think Governor Abbott said, no, we're not going to actually let local communities, towns, counties be able to have their own restrictions, right? So some local level leaders were trying to say you must have the mask, or they were trying to do certain closing of their businesses or stay at home, but it was being kind of overridden by the state government. So there needs to be like the kind of same pageness, which is not happening. I do think that, yes, there definitely could have been more people wearing a mask if there was a better message kind of throughout, because some of it's from confusion. I mean, the science updated. My poor man's Jerome Adams, the Surgeon General, who actually, fun fact, went to my undergrad, University of Maryland, Baltimore County, a while before I did. So he, you know, had the whole stance about masks are not effective. I mean, everyone said that, but he, as the public sort of health expert, health ambassador, whatever you want to call him, he kind of got some flack for when then they reversed. And it's like, well, you yourself said, you know, earlier that don't wear masks. It's not helpful. There's no, you know, it doesn't do this. And I remember he said something, and this was on Rising, for those of you who watch the Rising YouTube channel. I remember what the interview was on Rising, but they played a clip, and he had said something like, we used to tell people with asthma to smoke cigarettes. We used to have leeches to cure disease. He basically was like, when we find out the science has changed, we update. And like the hosts of Rising were very incredulous at that explanation, that basically the reason why they changed their stance on masks was just, well, science has always been flaky in the past. I mean, they work with it the best they can, but there definitely were some problems that were not helped by the federal response. I think if there was just enough testing and masks in the first place and all the PPE, then people could have taken more precautions and they wouldn't have had to say, oh, no masks, because they were just afraid of it running out for healthcare workers. But anyway, to kind of get back to the question, there was a lot of factors for why people aren't really wearing masks as much, and it's just got to move the best we can forward from the effectiveness, and hopefully people continue to take it seriously as we may brace for some kind of second wave or resurgence in the fall and winter.
Yeah.
Oh man, I like that. All right. Yeah, like, you know, science does update. It's important to keep up with the latest, you know, releases, patches. You know what I mean. The human patch 2019A. Oh man, bring your work home with me.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yikes.
Okay, I understand the lingo.
Oh man, but quarantine. Do you feel like if let's say the Surgeon General was president of the United States, that our numbers wouldn't be this high? Like, I feel like although I believe, you know, Trump and a lot of the, you know, Republicans had a hand in the large amount of cases, I feel like it would have still been really high in America anyway, regardless.
Unfortunately, there was a lot of people. I mean, and even a lot of us, like, okay, people making memes and jokes. What back in January, people barely knew. February, we heard more about it because Italy and other places were suffering, and we were still making jokes. And then, like, Bill de Blasio in New York City was like, "No, we're not going to cancel Chinatown. You know, go and do your thing." Pelosi said something similar about San Francisco. It's just very unfortunate when you see like the Democratic leaders heavily downplayed it as well. So it's kind of like, well, who's pointing fingers? Like the Spider-Man meme. Like, we're going to point at each other, but really, all of us low-key are kind of trash here. Or, okay, we didn't know the extent of the virus, but I feel like the only person, not the only person, but one of the only people who actually took it seriously was Yang in January. This coronavirus is very serious. And I don't even remember seeing that tweet. And now, of course, everyone retweets it, but it's just that there was not enough seriousness in this. I mean, yes, people didn't want people to freak out because that's the panic of it is a very bad situation. But it just was not well addressed by a lot of leaders. I know Governor Cuomo, I heard some things, I didn't hear it at the time, but he apparently had a law that said COVID patients had to go to nursing homes. And that, like, literally was the reason why there were so many deaths there, even though there was the administration, other people tried to say that, oh, it was the healthcare workers that brought the virus and all this other stuff. And that's not something you get really hear about as much. So I think it's important to see all the criticism, definitely on the federal level. Trump and all the people get no defense from me for saying things like it's going to disappear one day and just doubling down on that a few weeks ago. Oh yeah, I'm right. It will eventually disappear. Like, no defense of that. But then you have so many leaders that didn't do great either. And it's hard to say why they did certain actions. Like, you know, it's easy to be an armchair critic, but it is important to not have the partisanness of it where it's like Republican bad, Democrat good. Like, no.
You're right.
Plenty of people have blame. Some people, like, you know, your state, like you said, Ronald, Michigan, Gretchen Whitmer is doing her thing. Yes. Even like in Ohio, there was a Republican governor. He did pretty well. I think Utah, you have some states where the Republican governors did very well because they actually took it seriously, you know, despite their I'm not trying to come for the entire base, but despite their own sort of population of anti-maskers, anti-whatevers, you know, those governor Republicans did the right thing. So
yeah, 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, I know Frederick, he just said, did we see his, I don't even know how to pronounce that, Axios interview? I've just seen clips of it, and man, this is the president that the majority of the American people chose. And for those who didn't vote, again, this is the president that was chosen for us. And I feel bad. I think the guy's name was Jonathan that was in the interview. I feel bad for him because he was asking Trump very specific questions and trying to get very specific answers. And only thing Trump could do was give him a roundabout answer. And it's like, well, hold on now. We were not doing it best, because if South Korea has been able to get it under control, and if Germany has been able to get it under control, and they've listened to reason and science, what's wrong with the United States? How come the United States numbers are still going up? You know, and I found that to be like the indication that he never really took this serious as it is anyways, that he never really listened to the science. He never really listened to reason. And now, you know, here we are, and it's like, man, it's not going to look good. And it has not.
That interview, it was an accident, actually. Like, I was watching something else and it auto played. So I didn't even hear about it on the news. Like, unlike the Chris Wallace one, which was widely like reshared and everything. Which I actually didn't watch all of that one, but that one was also interesting. But that Axios one was really, oh my gosh, like, Trump has a way of like making the things about him he's an entertainer. He knows how to like say these things and say, and it's just his responses. It's like it's not funny, but it actually is kind of funny. Like is like Jonathan literally is like here smile, like you can't even see his face, but Trump will be like, I see you smiling, Jonathan. And it's like, yeah, all of us are out here like just wondering like, what are you saying? Why are you doing this? Like, it's just, oh my goodness. Like, it was a good interview. If you haven't watched it, you should watch it. It's like 40 minutes or less, I think. Because I never really watched interviews that he had. I think also he hasn't had as many hard-hitting interviews. Like maybe he'll be on Hannity, which is not an interview, but just a stroking of his ego. But I do think things like this, Axios, Chris Wallace, it is interesting to actually watch and kind of see how their questions are. They're very fair questions. They're very, like it's very measured, it's very reasonable. And it's just interesting seeing how he responds to these things and like the deflections and different things. I don't watch like Fox, or I don't watch like a lot of these places. I don't see his briefings on the regular. So it's interesting kind of like the dynamic that he actually has with the press. On like one-on-one settings. It's actually much more cordial than him yelling at journalists in the press room.
All right, you guys. Any last words?
Oh, shout out Sass in the chat, Anna, Frederick. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Yes. And again, as always, you guys, make sure you like, subscribe, hit that like button, because Thursday, I think it's Thursday, August 6th, we will have Jen Perlman of Florida District 23 on the channel, so we'll be talking to her. Make sure you guys tune in to that one. Other than that,
I was going to say,
out of here. Go ahead.
Anna had a comment. You have to elevate it. Trump and my dad have the exact same personality.
Yeah.
Every time I watch these interviews, oh man, I'm weak.
Right. So, because I know that we've had a wonderful discussion again. Make sure you guys like the channel, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and again, stay tuned for the interview with Jen Perlman. This coming up on the 6th. We will talk to you guys later. We are out of here. Peace.